Right. Okay. I'll just give everyone a couple of seconds just to join us. But say thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to apologize in advance if my voice disappears or comes back or I sneeze or something. I'm nursing a cold, but it will go. But I couldn't miss this opportunity today to talk to my special guest, Arivee Vargas. Now, we've known each other for a very short time, but we've been stalking each other, which is really interesting. And and we just keep on thinking, "Ooh, let me." We've been talking to each other too, as well, not just stalking each other. I'll take the S away from that, and it's been talking to each other. Um, and I'll give you a nice proper introduction for my guest today, and I'll just put her details up here very, very quickly. So that's Arivee Vargas. So that's good there. And I'm just going to double check, see if there's any comments coming in yet, just to make sure that we're live. I'm sure we are. I always do this every time just to make sure. I think it's really, really important. I'm just going to double check on LinkedIn. Hopefully I can double check there too. She says, I don't know. I think I'm technical, but I'm not really technical at all. So let's just go back to where I was. Right. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. And my special guest is Arivee Vargas. Now, Arivee, she is, she's in the process of transitioning from being in the corporate world to being her own boss, I call it, but being an entrepreneur, being a business owner. And it's not an easy step to take, and it requires a shift in your mindset because it also has an impact on your identity and how you see yourself. And as you know, I am an EI mentor, which is an emotional intelligence mentor, and I'm also a former therapist. So I kind of am always in that process of looking at how people evolve, what makes them change and what do they become. So identity changes, and also your mindset needs to change, which is the way that you think and see things and process things. All of that needs to change. So I'm very curious today to find out how Arivee has come to the place of taking that leap of faith, let's say, or making that decision. It's a calculated decision. And then also where she is right now. And she's been doing a lot of posts as well, teasing me on LinkedIn and saying all this stuff. And I'm just so curious. I've got one of her posts sitting in front of me. I just need to just dive straight in. I'll give you a bit of a clue as to what it says. Okay, this will get you going as well, everyone. So what does alignment mean? And your actions match who you say you are. Your actions match who you say you want to be. Your actions match what you say is most important to you. And finally, your actions match what you say you want to accomplish. And at the end of it, Arivee says that she's undergoing a massive pivot in her career. I just thought, wow, I just need to find out some more as well on top of that. So let's just dive in at that point.
Thanks, Joy. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here. I always love talking to you. We've known each other for a short time, but I feel like I've known you for much longer because of the quality of our conversation. So thank you.
Arivee, is that it? I was just about to type something in the column in response to someone who says that here. Hi, Adrian. I can see Adrian is saying you can hear us. I was going to type. I had the mute on. I thought you were going to continue there. So is that it?
Oh.
I thought you were going to spill the beans and tell us what's going on. Because
okay.
moving from being in the corporate space and having people around you and having everything that you want at the end of your fingertips to moving to working for yourself, becoming your own business owner, it does require a change in how you see yourself. But I'm curious about, I've known you for a while, and I wasn't aware that this was happening. So what changed?
What changed? What a great question. For me, what happened was that I couldn't ignore the calling anymore. So sometimes we change jobs or change something, especially when it comes to work, different role, different company, because we're running away from something. We're trying to avoid something. Sometimes an environment is toxic. Sometimes you just want a different experience. Sometimes we're not being developed. There are a whole host of reasons why we run from something. But for me, this is a running towards a calling. And that's really what happened. I was doing coaching on the side for almost 5 years. Then I started, as you know, one of my biggest transitions in my career was lawyer to leadership development and executive coaching, running those programs for a biotech company. So it wasn't just I went from lawyer to coach. I was still a lawyer. I still have my credentials also. I haven't been able to let go of those yet, but I was practicing and then went in-house and then went into HR and employee relations role, and then got into leadership development and executive coaching initiatives. So I've had a multiple pivots there.
Well, I'd say it sounds like you were just, like me, just sneaking out the door, wrong way, sneaking out the door, sneaking out the door, sneaking out the door, and then she's gone.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Is it?
I love that.
Do you not think that's what you want to do?
That wasn't my intention. My intention was to achieve the full alignment I wanted at that job because I loved the company, mission driven. I love the people that I worked with. This isn't a situation where like I didn't like it and wanted something else. This is a situation where I loved it. And that's when I knew, because I was doing exactly what I said I wanted to do. They had given me exactly the opportunity I had been asking for. And here I was with it and saying, oh, it doesn't matter what they give me. They could grow me and challenge me 10,000 times. It's not going to be enough. It's not about them. It's about me. And I will be honest, it was hard because like the decision was hard because I knew I was going to miss people. I knew I was going to miss the team and the camaraderie. And I laugh every day. I used to laugh every day at work. I laugh every day anyway, but at work, like something special to me about going in 3 days a week and being with people. And I grew a lot in that job, like in that company for 8 years. So it means more to me than just a job. To me, so much growth, so many things happened in my life when I was there. Joy, like I've been through depression, anxiety. I was so supported by my company at that time. I had a miscarriage very late in my pregnancy, was so supported. Again, this company is not just like a job to me. So, but this is how I knew. I'm like, oh, all of that is so good, yet this calling remains. And what happened was the call got really loud. And then I felt like I was seeing signs everywhere. Like every single day, I would see another sign. I would see another sign that you are meant to leave and go do this thing that you can do, to see what you're capable of and to see the kind of impact you could have. Like this is the time to do that. And
can we just like look at some of those synchronicities as well? Because people think that when coincidences happen and they start seeing things that back up what they're wanting to do, they don't always pay attention to it. Now, this whole thing with emotional intelligence, with self-awareness, I also think a huge part of it is intuition. And intuition is something which we've forgotten, I think, as human beings to tap into. We've got so analytical and we got so logical that we've almost run away. And again, like your word, run away from the fact that we are emotional creatures and our minds and our bodies talk to each other. They give each other a bit of a message, and then the brain will spew something out. So these synchronicities that were happening, could you tell me anything that comes to mind? Was it like driving your car and you, I don't know, saw a cloud and you could see it written in the clouds? I'm exaggerating there, Arivee, but
it was things like I'd be reading a book and the page, like, so for example, I'm reading a book called Brianna Weiss, The Pivot Year. And it would be like the first page I turned to, she was talking to me because of what I was thinking of doing. It's like I turned on the radio and like the song was a song about breaking free or something. Like it was like those things that my interpretation of them became, this is telling me I need to go do this. The other thing is, Joy, is our reticular activating system, that filter, like, everyone always uses the example of when you want to buy a car and you want to buy a blue Kia, you start seeing blue Kias everywhere. This is what happened. I started really thinking about it seriously. And then my RAS basically filtered everything out and said, I'm going to show her all the things. Like, now she's really thinking about it. I'm going to show her all the things that show her, yeah, you're thinking about it. It's important. And then when I saw those things, the way I interpreted them was, oh yeah, that confirms that this is going to be the right decision. But also it came to the point where that I couldn't stop seeing signs. Like, started to get annoying. I was like, okay, I get it. And I think of them, Joy, I think of them as God telling me something. I think of God telling me, like, you're here for a purpose. You got to go live your purpose. You're not doing it as much as you could do it. Now is the time.
And we are a big bundle of potential, aren't we? From the moment that we're born, there are so many things that we can do. And the standing kind of joke that I have with clients is that when you were born, you didn't come out and then they got a stamp and stamped your bum and said, oh, this one belongs over there working with the farmers, or this one belongs over there, running their own business. This one, there is nobody doing that kind of, I'm sorting it all out. You are able, in my head, to do everything with a bit of practice and a bit of intention and sometimes skills and talents. Talents can be an interesting way of elevating you to the top of something, but even a good athlete, it's practice, 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 until you can't get things wrong. So yeah, this calling was there. It's an interesting thing. And it reminds me, I was reading actually a book about the hero's journey. So the way in which a story gets told, and
Yes.
the hero starts at the beginning of the story with a calling, and there's fear because you don't necessarily want to take that leap and move into a completely different world. So what gave you the courage to do that? Because this is, I wanted to talk today about becoming a leader and also changes of identity and the shift of mindset that's required. So, but there's also fear, a
Yeah.
huge amount of fear, which no one talks about. What was it that managed to push that fear out of the way?
Joy, can I tell you, I've been practicing courage my whole life. Like, I've been practicing moving through fear my whole life. Many of us haven't looked back to see the times that they've pushed through fear, because fear is not going away. It's still there. It's about how do we engage it in a way that's helpful to us, right? So for me, I've been practicing courage, like when I went to when I went to law school, no, I had not really known many lawyers close to me who were role modeling what it meant to be a lawyer, what it meant to practice law. I'm first generation Latina, so that was a struggle for me. But like, I wanted it. I knew why I wanted it, and so that overpowered the fear of the unknown and the uncertainty, right? Because everyone knows that you go to college, then you go to law school in the States, law school, those 3 years, your first year is the most important to get really great grades, and you're graded on a curve. So you can only do well if others don't do as well. And the pressure is high and you're competing against your classmates. And so you have to, going into that situation, I'm like, oh, it's unknown. I may not do well. Then what then? What do I do then? And I was like, oh, I'll just keep going. Worst case scenario, I don't do well. I do better the next year. I will figure it out, right? And then you go into big law firms, again, environments that I didn't even know existed until I got to law school. I didn't grow up with that in my life. I didn't grow up with white collar professionals, honestly, sharing with me what was possible and what they did for a living. Like, I didn't know any of that. So going even into a law firm environment took courage every day, Joy, to be like one of the only people of color, women of color, and not know what the hell you're doing. You're learning how to be a lawyer, and everything is about, is she smart? Is she good enough? Can she deliver? That's what I'm telling myself. It required courage to switch to go to do federal clerkships and try something different. Courage to go to a biotech instead of staying and trying to make partner at my firm. That was a huge thing for me. Courage. And then so on and so off when I said I didn't want to be a lawyer anymore and I wanted to go into HR. Like, I had been practicing this had been practicing courage and acceptance of the unknown for a long time, meaning I
Mm.
was okay with not knowing exactly what the result would be because I believed that whatever happened, I would figure it out.
And that's what I was thinking. You're using this thing around needing courage to do something, but it's the courage to change, but also you've got to have a vision of why you want to go somewhere. So, like anything, just as in marketing and sales, you need to be going from A to B, and you have to work out how much do I want this? Like I was saying, I was just reading about this the hero's journey and the stuff that we have around the plot for every film that we watch or every story that we're trying to tell. And the desire has to be huge for the hero or the heroine in this case to move.
Yes.
It just has to be huge. Now, you mentioned about the things that you would miss because going out and working for ourselves, sometimes by ourselves, or then building people around us, it's very different to being in the cozy environment of your usual office space with your friends and your mates and your colleagues. And you're right, having those, say, water cooler moments, we
Yep.
call it just going into the kitchen over here and having a coffee. It sounds much nicer American having a water cooler moment. We don't, I think we do have water coolers. I don't remember them, but it's a long time ago. But yeah, so, there must be things that you miss.
Yeah. I mean, I miss my people. My manager, who I believe is one of the greatest leaders I've ever worked with. I was so fortunate to have, honestly, from the beginning of my career at that biotech to the end, great managers and leaders I worked under. And I still text her all the time. I'm like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, I saw this thing. Do you want, like, we still chat. I still text with my peers because, again, I've known them for a long time. And I think it's not the end of a relationship. And now our friendship can go deeper because she's no longer my manager, right? And also your friendships can go deeper when you're not like cross-functionally collaborating on a deliverable. You're just friends, right? So I it's been that's been difficult, of like the daily touch point with someone. And also when someone reaches out to you for something, I didn't realize this before. I'm saying this right now, Joy, but I'm realizing as I'm talking that when someone reaches out to you at work, they ping you because they need something, it makes you feel good. It makes you feel valued. And when you're an entrepreneur and you're on your own for the day and you have like 2 or 3 things you're doing, maybe you have this kind of session, right? But you have 2 or 3 things you have to do on a lighter day. The other time, no one is really pinging you. No one is really pinging you for something that they need.
You're
Even
talking about
clients aren't like 24/7. Hey, that's not the relationship we have.
And that's an interesting observation because we go from being a part of something to
Yes.
being separate. And I know that there's a lot of talk around the loneliness of, becoming an entrepreneur or being your own boss. And even within a space where you work with other people, you can still isolate yourself because you need to perhaps be seen to be an authority figure. But you're right. I agree with you. Getting those pings, getting that sense of like, I'm an important person. Arivee wants to speak to me. Yes,
Yeah, no,
where,
kind of.
where, where's the validation? Where's the self-validation? I get that. So that can be a tough thing. And that is really down to your shift in identity. You're no longer an employee. You now are your own person. You're the leader of one. But
Yes.
we kind of need to have people around us to remind us or to hold that mirror up to us and say, oh, don't worry, this is what you are and it's fine. It's fine. It's very interesting about the self validation that's needed. Now, I've got a question here. I'm going to put this up on the screen. Let's show this one. This is from Leo, and he's just saying, nice to meet you virtually. He is also at a positive crossroads with
Mm.
another part of his career, and he's very interested in your definition of
Oh,
patience. You spoke about courage, but Leo wants to hear about, yes, patience is required when we're changing from one thing to another. So thank you so much for that, Leo. Yeah, how do you feel about that, Arivee?
Leo, let me tell you, I was telling Joy right before we went live that the thing I struggle with the most right now is patience. And I'm just being honest because for me, again, back to what it's like in the corporate environment or my previous role is I need something by this deadline. Here's your deliverable. Thank you very much. It looks great. Okay. Or, hey, we need to adjust some things. Okay, great. There's a constant churn and you feed off of that. You get energy from that. I didn't realize how much energy I actually got from that every day.
It's
And
called adrenaline,
there you go.
Arivee.
Thank you. Therapist Joy, thank you very much for getting us grounded. The adrenaline, right? You get that adrenaline rush. And I feed off of adrenaline like most people. And you want more and you want more. And for me, patience has been important in this period because I literally just left on March 8th. That was my last day. So you want to see the same results as you delivered at work. You want to see them now. You want to see them right now. And I'm like, no, but I'm in a major transition, meaning a mental, emotional mindset, identity shift transition. That is not just a job. That is like the whole person. And I can't expect myself to get on another treadmill before I've really settled into this new kind of season. And that's what I've been doing is every day I'm journaling and setting the intention for the day of like, okay, I have this thing with Joy. Let me just prep for this and just like be good with just doing this today and not needing to find other things to do to give me the adrenaline and the validation of I'm doing something. Because for me, the doing also gives me adrenaline joy. Like it's the doing. And I am now at a place where I can create my own schedule. I have 3 children, so that's really important to me. And I have to decide how I want work to fit within my life, not work and then life is fit in there. And so that takes patience too, because you're not going to do that all in one day. I would love to just figure everything out, get results right away, know everything's going to work. And then I just repeat that. That is not the reality I'm in. And so
You're so making me laugh, Arivee.
Joy, patience. By the way, can I just say patience is hard all around. Even with your children, it's hard. It's all hard.
I was just going to say, Arivee has no patience, Leo. So I hope that's answered your question. She did give an answer, which was really great, but she actually has no patience. This idea about you're quite right, moving from one location to another without tripping over, without breaking a step, without like it's not even real, Arivee, is it? If I actually just took you from one location in your city to another location, completely different house, different street, I mean, I think there's going to be a period of adjustment.
Yeah. And longer than you think it is. And I do know that it's always, I'm going to be honest, adjustments typically take me, if I'm being really honest, a year. Like if I'm being really honest, where I feel like, okay, I'm grounded in this, like this is it. I think it's a year. I would say like when you're moving, locations, I think it's like 8 months to a year. Like I still believe that just because it takes your brain some time to like readjust and get into a repetition and a different kind of practice. And that's how your brain gets rewired. To me, that's how it always has happened. And I know that logically, Joy. I know that logically. I know that from my past. I know, but this is again something I've never done. So I'm trying to use what's helped me in the past, but also be open to a totally new way of doing things now. Like I'm very much open.
I love that.
And it's hard, Joy. Like let's be honest. I'm open and it's hard.
Arivee, it's hard because you're impatient, and also another thing is that you've got an old story on the go. You mentioned about that neuroplasticity in the brain and our ability to change. It will change. We change all the time. We respond. We respond we actually respond in reaction to our environment. We cannot help but do that. That's what human beings do. It's what makes us great, our ability to adapt. But what I think happens, like everything else, I love routines. I'm the first person to say I like things to be in this place, that place, even though it can be a mess. It doesn't matter. I know that's my mess over there and I know exactly what's in there. But someone comes in and tries to tidy up and messes up my brain. I'm like, what are you doing? So what we're doing is breaking ourselves out of what I would call a trance, you know. I could
Mm.
sleepwalk around my house probably. I know where everything is, even the stuff that shouldn't be there in a pile somewhere. Like I can probably sleepwalk around that. So it's forcing us to wake up, our brain saying, hey, this is very different. What's this? Whose car is that outside my house? Are you sure that's where I live? You know, your mind is making all these adjustments all the
Yes.
time about just almost like comparison, A, B, A, B. Have things changed? And we actually love the familiar. So it's also beginning to make it feel very anxious, like this is different. You know,
Yes.
are we in danger? So there's a lot going on in that whole process of change. And you're right about the patience. The patience is we can either train ourselves to be patient or we can just stay in that impatient space. But I
Yeah.
want you to recognize that with the emotional intelligence, which is becoming aware of the emotions that are happening and then and managing them, anxiety would be, beginning to creep up,
Yes, Joy.
beginning to creep up. Just I'd point that out for you. Right. So, Arivee. So, yes, we've been looking at identity shifts and mind shifts. You mentioned one which was actually I quite like being around people. I've forgotten that that was so good. And the
Mm.
reason why I love it, I get a lot of feedback on who I am, who I'm meant to be, what my role is in life. I get that constantly if I'm in an office around other people, working for myself, being a solo entrepreneur, going on to building my empire. Yeah, things are different. So what else have you noticed that's a bit different for you?
I find myself, I alluded to this before, but I find myself wanting to do things, like keeping myself, my mind occupied to distract myself from the anxiety I feel about this business. And when I say that, I'll be more specific. I haven't yet, and this is why this conversation is so timely. I haven't yet said to my world on LinkedIn or even my email list yet, hey, I am now full-time coaching, speaking, and writing because I have a book coming out next year. I am now doing this full time. So now come one and come all. I haven't done that yet. And I haven't done that yet intentionally because I'm not ready. Like, I'm not ready for the influx. I'm not ready to do that yet because I still feel like I may not be fully adjusted at that time that I do that because I'm never going to be fully ready for that. But I want a little bit more space for myself to kind of just get a little bit more of my bearings when it comes to not needing to be doing something all of the time. Like what
And
happens is I
You
wake
need
up
you need
and I
to
don't,
cut yourself some slack though,
yeah,
don't you? In
yeah,
terms of, when this change happened to you.
yeah,
It's couple of 3 weeks, is it?
yeah, it's brand new, Joy.
3 So
Joy's
3
laughing.
weeks,
She's like, "What do you mean? Just cut yourself some slack, relax." And I'm like, "I can't. I'm not wired that way." But I know I need to take some time. I know.
but that's okay. Again, this whole self-awareness is just recognizing that this space that I'm in right now, feeling the way that I feel, it's normal. If I drop Joy into that space, she'd be behaving like this too. There's going to be a period of getting into a new routine, getting to know yourself again, and again, changing who you think you are. I know you brought up a really lovely line in one of your posts about changing the stories about who you
Yeah,
are.
yeah,
And I think that's where you're at,
yeah,
changing the story about who you are, but also remembering that you've got some other like beliefs which have been following you, which are now following you into this role.
yes, yes. That I have to intentionally and purposefully be aware of and challenge. And even when I like I mentioned to you, Joy, of how me needing to like get up and like do something, other than I have a self-care routine that I always do. I've always done. So that's not new. Um, but even things like, oh, I don't have like a day full of meetings anymore. Oh, so what can I do? Like I immediately go into the do instead of going into, let me just sit and like, let me just journal for a minute. Like I still journal, but again, it's a different, for me, the feeling when you're talking about the belief, like it is the action that goes with that belief and the anxiety that comes up for me and the stress that I feel when I feel like I'm not doing enough for the day, like to be productive for the day, because productivity in the corporate world, when you are beholden to someone else and to a team and to a company, is very different than from working for yourself, which is what I'm realizing. And when I love that, I feel like I have more time for my children and I have more flexibility and I'm building a schedule that will work for me. At the same time, I have to unravel and let go of how things used to be and how I was essentially forced to be for years, Joy, since I was in law school. This is years and years of a pattern that I have to essentially break. And it's what's funny, Joy, is like I have a very, very good friend who I actually met on LinkedIn, who I actually see when I go to Florida. She's fantastic. And she's very much like, this is the season. This is a new thing for you. It's going to take time. Like all of us would be going through the same thing. Like it's going to take time. And I'm like, you just seem so relaxed about it. But I want to just like move through very quickly because I don't want to deal with the discomfort, Joy. Like, let's be honest.
Okay. It's uncomfortable, and I get what you're saying. And this idea about changing your story, and as Leo said, I'll just put that one up again. Actually, let's just do that. Yeah, changing one's own story, and there's some truth in there, or changing your own truth. I think what you say to yourself is important, and this adjustment or readjustment that you're having to make now as you're moving from that corporate space to being your own boss, being your own leader. This is just part of it. It's normal, but it's uncomfortable. It's
Yes.
uncomfortable. And as you were describing what you did, Arivee, I forgot, and perhaps I pushed it to the back of my mind, but I started working for myself 2012. I probably spent 2 or 3 years behaving like you.
Okay,
I don't want that. I don't want this to happen to you. That's all I can say. It was the most.
Because I've committed to certain things for like, next month and the following month. So I know I'm going to be doing some action. I'm going to be taking some action, but I'm going to be taking it at a pace that isn't relentless, right? Not right now. So I have some things that I've committed to that if I commit to something, I do it. So I'm going to be moving through the discomfort by continuing to take my space, but also by doing something that makes me feel like, oh yeah, this is why I did this. I did this to have that kind of impact. So
I was going to say that. Yeah, I was going to try and fill that space,
Yep.
because you're an energetic person. You've got an awful lot of energy to burn off, and it was getting burnt off before in a certain way. Although it's probably through nervous energy and through anxiety and pressure and everything else. But the body, when it's in that heightened state, is going to pour a lot of adrenaline into us. And I've noticed that I deliberately tap into that adrenaline. I didn't realize I needed it, actually. This is confession from me. How did you get me to confess this? Anyway.
Joy, you're basically getting a therapy session for free, okay? So this is great.
But what I'm saying here is that when I needed to, and I've lost my train of thought there. What was I going to say? Yeah. I've lost my train of. This is what happens as well. But yeah, I spent quite some time in that space where I felt I had to be doing something. And now I've noticed that I get that feeling that you just described about I'm doing something, I'm feeling very productive, I'm feeling very useful, I have my status, I have my full, sense of fulfillment, I have my purpose given to me, everything's given to me. It gets taken away. It just disappears when you're by yourself, and you invariably, unless you go to a co-working space, you're on your own. Like, oh my God. So I've tapped into a co-working space recently through a course that I joined, which is lovely. I'm really, really enjoying that. But also I realized that I just had to calm down when necessary, but also just tap into adrenaline. So I'm preparing for you today. I'm not quite lastminute.com, I do a lot of preparation, as you probably know, but there are some things that I tend to just leave until the last minute, and I can see myself, and I think, why am I doing that? And I realised I'm actually creating that kind of like frenetic feeling
Yes.
of anxiety and tension in my body, which is not a bad energy. It's there to make us go, it's there to make us move, it's there to make us do things. And with the whole thing around anxiety and adrenaline, it's just knowing what your sweet spot is and knowing when too much is too much and
Yeah.
knowing when too little is too little. You know, it sounds like one of these children's stories about Goldilocks and the three bears. I don't know if you have that one in the US, but
Yes, we do. Oh, of course we do. Wait, where did it
but you
originate?
know, you got to find the sweet spot, that right space for you. So you're an energetic person. I'm just saying you probably need to do more things that are burning off that energy for you.
Yes, I've realized. So things like this, Joy, like conversations like this, I've been taking since I love these kinds of conversations. They give me energy. They just feel great. And I love talking to really good people. So that's something that I use as I continue to do things like this. I do love talking to big groups of people. So those are the things that I'll keep doing until I really go off and say, I'm totally open for business, right? I do hear when people tell me, like close friends will be like, hey, I think maybe it would be a good idea if you just like did nothing for like a few weeks at least. And I'm like
That's the
what
wrong thing to say to
I go,
someone like you.
what do you mean?
Well, this is it. So in
I'm
a
like,
way,
so what do you
someone
think?
might say so someone would say to you, do nothing. Okay, so with your old mindset, you know, the one where we're always busy, that there's an agenda, that there's things to do, blah blah blah, you'd
Plan.
literally turn to me and say, Joy, could you just write that out for me in an agenda and send me an email, and could just put that into a couple of bullet points so I can know exactly how I'm going to project manage this. And you know, I'm thinking, I just said to you, just take some time out. And you want it read chapter and first an agenda. When what deadline are we working to, Joy? When would you like to come back to you? And I'm like, come on. So it's just about noticing that it's a different way of working. Okay. And all of your skills, all of the skills that you have and that I have from working for people from before, it's now we can do things our own way.
Yes. And I love that. And I'm like, oh wow. And now I get to actually do that now. You hear the difference, Joy, of like, yeah, that's what I wanted. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, but now I actually have to do that.
You actually calm down. You calm down, and I like to say, we have so many thoughts in a day. We can have up to 60,000 thoughts a day. So you are changing some of your thinking habits and some of your thinking patterns, and you're going to be reformulating new ones because the old one is still, you know, part and parcel of you at the moment, like, you know, like a big overcoat or a pair of, you know, comfy slippers. You just haven't quite changed yet. So you're
Yeah.
going to be reinventing yourself. You know, it's going to look different. You're going to be different, and not bad different. It's just it's going to be different. But you
Yeah.
have to allow yourself a transition period. That's what transition is meant to be about. It's a move as slowly or as quickly as you want it to be, but not sudden. Because sudden is trauma.
Yeah.
Sudden is traumatic. Sudden means you're going to go into shock, you know. So uh, kind of acknowledging that there's a transition between these two. That's all
Mm.
I wanted to say. And also I wanted to use my little ring. This is something, oops, this is something that I use with clients, and I have different colors. I have some different colors here. But this is your thoughts. You're going to be having, oops, new thoughts.
Mm.
New thoughts. That's what you're going to be having. So if I were to put you on the spot and say your new identity, um, you're a leader of one now instead of a leader of many. You know, the qualities that you had at work are going to be pulled in here. Just wondering, if you were talking to somebody else and giving them the advice, what three things would you say to them in terms of, yes, this leadership role that I've put you in, you know, I know it's some field work. We're going to be putting you in in Alaska or somewhere, but all the skills that you have are going to be used. What would you say to them? You still have to do X, Y, Z. I just want you to give some advice to this person who's thinking, "Oh my God, I'm freaking out. I'm going to be out there in the fields doing this job, but I'm going to be on my own. How am I going to cope?"
Oh, one of the things that's helped me, I can say, and this is a very like real timely conversation, right, Joy? Like I said, let's do it now, even though I could have said, let's do it in 2 months when I may have come down a little bit more, right? One thing is, I know this was the right decision for me. Like there is no question about that. There is not like like a 0.001% regret. There is none of that because I know my purpose and I know why I decided to do this. So the one thing that really helps me every day, Joy, I will say this, is I'm like, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is a period of adjustment. I know that. And I see the light. It's right there. I'm going to move that way. I'm not going to rush over there. It's not a sprint. Like I keep focusing on why I decided to do this and why it was right for me. That does help me a lot, especially when I feel like I'm not emailing people enough. I'm like, oh, no. Like you need to figure out and get super clear about who you really want to serve. You've served a lot of people, you have a certain lane, but what if you want to shift that a little bit? That's going to take some space, mental space, and some quiet. And I know that. And so that helps me is being more okay with being anchored in my purpose and why, and letting that fill up some space where that would have been taken up by like some activity that didn't move any needle for me at all, right? Like the other thing too is I am super aware of things that come through my inbox that I'm like, not going to help, not going to be helpful to me to do that. Like I'm really focused on, hey, I got to get some more clarity on who I really want to serve and how I want to serve them to create the greatest impact, to have the life that I want to have too. Like there is this bigger picture and bigger life that I feel like, or vision that I'm moving towards, but I need space to really feel what that could be like and to practice some of that. So
You know the answers, Arivee. You know the answers, which is brilliant. I think, as you said, it's just this transition period that you're going through and discovering this new identity, beginning to label it. So I encourage you to label it. I'm an entrepreneur over here and over there. I was in the corporate space, and they're different. They are different.
yeah.
They have different. They require different things of you.
Yes.
And I think once you start establishing what they are, like if I had a couple of labels in a box and you pulled it out and stuck it here and stuck one there, you begin to have an idea, if you were doing a column, that they're different. There are some qualities that overlap, but they are different. And so you begin to just step into being this new person, which is why change can be hard, Arivee. It can be very, very hard. We're not sure who we're going to become.
Yeah, you can have the vision and your North Star, but everyone says this, Joy, you know this, it's the person that you become along the way that you can't really predict, right? Like you can have this North Star, but it's like they say the real gold is that process, and you can't predict it, you can't dictate it. You can only do the next right thing, which is what I'm trying to do, Joy. I'm trying to do the next right thing in the context of what you said is I'm in a transition adjustment period. And one thing that's always been hard for me, Joy, which is not surprising to you, is giving myself grace and being kind to myself and being compassionate with myself. I've gotten so much better over the years. Like I'm so much better than it used to be 10 years ago or 5 or 3 years ago, but I still struggle with that. And that's coming up for me again here, right? Is that struggle of being okay with not feeling like I have to be doing all the time, being okay with this period of an adjustment period that I don't want to force anything and move too quickly into something that isn't right for me. So it's
And
all of
and
these
this is all the good advice that you share with your clients. You've been, as you said, you've been working 3 days on, 2 days, 3 days for corporate, 2 days for yourself. So you've been moving into this space anyway. So, it's just changing your thought that actually I've been doing this anyway.
Joy, no, 3 days in the office, 2 days at home, and on
That's
top
it.
of that, doing my side thing. No, I was working full time for all that time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I
I
know.
would say, where do you find the time? But then, I was like, you have an awful lot of adrenaline and you're very driven and you fill your space with stuff and you got 3 kids. So it's like, yeah, 2 kids,
3, Joy.
3, 3, that's a full day,
You see why
so
I love schedules? Do you see why I love schedules and agendas?
it's gonna work out. It's gonna be fine. You just got to now start filling your agenda with something else. So, yeah, becoming a leader of one requires you to at least acknowledge that there's something going on. You're doing that. I call that awareness. The next step is you're recognizing some of the feelings that are happening for you. So this is all this emotional intelligence stuff. You're
Yeah.
recognizing the feelings that are happening for you. You're managing them very well because you wouldn't be able to come on and talk to me if you weren't managing it very well.
Thanks,
You're
Joy.
you're highly motivated, so highly motivated, it's untrue. You know exactly what's motivating you right now. You said just straight up, like, I'm 99.9% sure, even if someone threw all of this stuff at me from a really great corporate job, I don't want it right now.
No, no.
So you're very clear on that. Okay. What I would say was just some of the empathy which you share with other people, share it with yourself, give some to yourself.
Story of my life, yes. Story of my life. Again, gotten better over the years, but really, really difficult. Even when I ask myself the questions I would ask someone who is a client in my position, even when I do that, I I know something about myself is I believe something more when my body can experience it and when it can remember it. And so that's why, like, even this past week, Joy, I'm like, oh, I have this conversation with Joy on Thursday. And you sent me all the prep material. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do the prep the morning of the interview so that I work better that way when it's fresh. But you know what? I'm not going to do prep Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, which is what I would have done, Joy, right? Like giving myself some more space to be like, no, you can just do it that morning and you'll be fine. And the other
You're going,
space,
you're going to treat me like one of these cases that you're going into, and you've got this big suitcase and boxes full of paper. And I'm saying, Arivee, it's only an interview.
and that,
Saying, but Joy, I have to prepare. I have to spend 3 days on this. I have to. So we have to work out who you're doing it for. You're doing it to back up this idea.
yeah,
And I would say a lot of what we do in terms of changing our identity and changing our beliefs, it hinges on who we think we are, and you're just living more into that space, by doing the prep, by doing the whatever. I'm saying, but things have changed. And you're saying, yeah, things have changed. I don't have to do that anymore. Just recognize it's a different life. And that
yeah.
and your brain is going to catch up very, very quickly to the fact that things have changed. So
Mm.
don't be surprised if at the moment it's as confused as you feel. That's it. And then it will all settle, and then that will become the new normal for you. I
So
mean,
how long did it take you, Joy, to like really feel like that happened for you?
I said it took years. I must admit, it felt
You said
like
two
it
to
took.
three, but two to
Wow.
three, that transition that you just mentioned.
I'd love to reassure you and say it only took a couple of weeks, or I'd love to reassure you and say it only took a couple of months. But I feel that it's an ongoing process,
Mm,
okay? Because I talk a lot about, in order to build your business, you have to develop the owner. The owner has to grow.
yeah.
So how you achieve that is entirely up to you. You either work with good coaches, good mentors, work with someone like myself who has that extra therapy background as well, and that I tag on to everything that I do. Or you talk to your friends, you do what you need to, but you have to grow because your business won't grow
Mm,
unless you do. So just
yes.
recognizing that, allow yourself the space to change, allow yourself the space to grow, that's what it looks like. It's kind of like recognizing some reality. That's what change looks like. I mean,
Yeah, and it's
when did you forget that?
yeah. No, I know, and I know it's messy. It can be messy meaning it's not going to always feel orderly, like scheduled. And the what brings you a sense of control, that's I think underneath it all, it's like a sense of control. Like I'm a big believer in controlling what you can control and letting go of what you can. And here is a perfect example of the messiness of what that means. Right? So I'm and this conversation is so helpful to me because it makes me feel like, no, I'm doing what's best, like right now in this moment. And like it's not that I should be doing something else. It's that give myself some space and time and continue to be aware of when those essentially what they are like are limiting beliefs come through, and just understanding that there's change happening and that change is going to feel uncomfortable, just like reminding myself that it's okay to feel uncomfortable and it's okay to feel that and not go run to a coffee shop to say I'm doing something. Right, like
And I would say also reinterpreting sometimes the feelings that we have and the ideas that we have. So, this feeling, oh my God, it's bad. I'm like, what about if this feeling were good?
mm,
What about if this were a good feeling? Like, wow, this energy that I'm feeling, this, like I could, if I were a bubble, I could just burst, like, I've got so much inside of me, like, yeah, I'm liking, is that bad? I always tease myself, is that bad
yeah,
joy or
yeah,
is it good? You know,
yeah,
because you just don't know. And I know that things change around. So what was good now suddenly switches positions with the other one. And it's
mm,
like, so I play a game in my head, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, like it just is.
yeah, yeah. I have found myself.
I must put up, I'm going to stop us there because I want to remind people how they can get hold of you, Arivee. So
Oh, sure.
Arivee is on LinkedIn. This, these are her details. So please remember to do that. And I think you have an offer as well that you've got for people listening, ways in which they can work with you. Make sure I get that in.
Oh, sure. No, thanks. So anyone that's listening can go to my website, ariveevargas.com. If you click on the coaching tab, you can reach out to me if you are interested in one-on-one coaching or group coaching. As I mentioned in the conversation with Joy just now, I have been focused on a group coaching program that I want to launch later this summer. So again, it's a little ways away, but reach out to me about that because I will be interviewing everyone who's interested to customize that experience further. So great way to reach out to me on that or one-on-one coaching is through my website.
And are you wanting people at a particular stage in their own life? Again, are there going to be women just like you wanting to make that transition? Just wondered what kind of group of people you're trying to attract.
This group is if you're like a high performing, high achieving professional that you've been in some fast paced environments that have beaten you up a little bit, like people who've been beaten up a little. When I say that, I mean mentally. They're looking for more alignment and some more fulfillment and joy in their life. That's really what this is aiming to help with.
Sounds brilliant. Great. Lovely. So there you go. Ariveevargas.com. Go there and you'll find all the details for her there. And while we're doing a little bit of, promoting ourselves, why not? This is how you can like work with me. I'm doing 15 minutes of joy, which means you can just come and talk to me for 15 minutes, no agenda. Let me hear what's happening, work out how we can create some change. And that's it. And then if we were interested in doing more after that, we'd have a second conversation. So the more conversations I have, the better, really. I'm just finding out so much more about what people want to want from me. So it can be a lot of fact finding as well, but also you'll be moving forward. So that was me, guys. And please contact me if you do need to find out more. I'm on LinkedIn. It's down there as Karen Joy, even though you know me as Joy, guys, but Karen Joy Langley, that's me. And I just put up Arivee's link there. Arivee's link is there too on LinkedIn. So, you know what? This has been a conversation which I think we could have gone on with for quite some time, because there's a lot to say. There's a lot to say, isn't there?
Joy, I can talk to you forever. But the other piece I wanted to add, as you were sharing about how people can reach out to you and book a call with you, is I would encourage people to think about this conversation as something that could be something that you would be interested in with Joy, because Joy and I talked for about 50 minutes, right? And you all don't realize how much she helped me, but she helped me a lot because she asked me the right questions. And so much when it comes to therapy and coaching are the questions you're asking yourself the right ones for where you are right now and what you need. And Joy, like she clearly does that. You don't know how much of an impact she's had on me internally, because I don't have time to share that all with you. But booking a call 15 minutes and like having someone like Joy who's trained in this is beyond helpful, especially if you feel like what you've been doing isn't working for you anymore.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And it feels like a self-admiration society between the both of us here. You know, me saying how amazing you are and you saying how amazing I am. But yeah, we're both amazing. There's room for two of us, okay? We've had some we've had some very nice comments here. You know, Michael has said thank you, great discussion. So Michael, great seeing you. And Leo's also enjoyed the conversation. I can't see anyone else at the moment name. I'll go back and I shall look at all of these all of the messages and everything else. But this has been a really enlightening conversation. I know that I wanted to talk about leadership. People forget that we are first and foremost the leader of one, which is ourselves. We kind of lose sight of that. There's a lot of talk about leadership in business and, you know, how do you become a leader? What makes a good leader? All of that stuff. I would put it to everyone that hopefully, if you're managing your own lives well, you're being a leader of one, which is preparing you for being the leader of many. So I just wanted to say that. And also around mind shifts and personality changes, identity changes. I don't, you know, all the stuff around change. You know, what will I become if I stop being what I am right now? I just want everyone to remember that life is always changing, constantly changing. That's the one thing you can guarantee. And hopefully you've done that quite well so far. And that's why I wanted to remind you, Arivee, that you've been changing for the longest amount of time. What makes you think you can't do this?
Yeah. Oh, I can, Joy. Just patience.
Patience. So a bit of good self-talk. And also, that's another thing, isn't it? Change the way that we talk to ourselves, change
Yes.
the things that we say to ourselves. It's amazing. I have another therapist who I watch on, been watching her for a while on YouTube, Marissa Peer, amazing woman. But she just says things like, your brain is always listening. And it's very simple things that you can say to people, and they just go, woof.
Yes.
And I have all these epiphanies when I hear the right phrase. I'm like,
yes.
so simple, but the brain is always listening. So be careful what you say.
Yes.
So when we're putting ourselves down, remember that if you keep telling your brain that you're rubbish, that you're this, you're that, it's like your brain goes, okay, no problem. We'll act that way then. If you say, oh, I'm amazing, I'm very organized, I can be chilled when I want to, the brain says, okay, we'll act that way. So remembering that we're always programming our brains, whether we like it or not, I think it's best to put some positive stuff in. And this whole thing about transitioning from the world of corporate into just working for yourself, being your own boss, being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, whatever title you like, it doesn't stop you from being human. It just means that you're working in a slightly different way, and those challenges may require you to grow in a different way. And you're growing your business. It's just like a little plant in some fertile soil, Arivee, and you're growing it. And I think you should allow it the grace to grow.
Yeah.
Stop trying to say, grow, shout it, everybody. Grow, for God's sake. You're only 1 centimeter long. Grow, grow. You keep shouting.
There's fertilizer that can speed up the growth. No, I hear what you're saying. Yes, I hear what you're saying. It's a good metaphor.
So look around yourself, and it's 1 minute to go, but look around, look at nature, see the way that nature progresses. Nature grows at its own pace. Some plants grow faster than others, bamboos, for example, but within reason. We have our own internal pace that's happening. So you have yours too, Arivee, and I have mine, and it's all good. Okay, so on that happy note, you've got 20 seconds to say something, Arivee, before we leave.
Just thank you so much for having me, Joy. And thank you everyone for listening. And I hope you reach out to Joy or me and just continue to grow and work on yourself and give yourself grace. That's what I'm working on too.
Absolutely fabulous. So we'll see you all soon. Bye-bye for now.